Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Hitting the Crew podcast, where we take a look inside the people that put Hitting the Field together, UCF's sports debate student run talk show. Student run sports debate talk show. It's a mouthful. It's a mouthful, right, Robert Husby?
It is a mouthful.
Absolutely. And today you are our special guest. You are today we take a deep dive into your life and everything that's led up to this moment.
Yep, Robert Husby, this is your life.
This is I'm Robert Husby and this is my life. That's kind of what this is.
Pretty much. I mean, yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm. So are you ready?
I am ready.
All right, let's not waste any more time. Let's just get right to it. So the way I usually like to start these is I kind of like to ask the guest, where are you from? How did you grow up? Did you grow up with siblings? Did you grow up without siblings? Did you have a large family, small family? So what is that to you?
Yeah, so I guess, to start, I mean, I'm from Los Angeles. I'm from the San Fernando Valley in LA, which is about 20, 30 minutes from downtown Los Angeles. It's LA County, but, it's just the outskirts of it. I'm an only child. It was just me, my parents, for the majority of my childhood, but I have a lot of cousins. So my mom's side is Italian, so we're just like a huge, huge family. So it was basically like growing up with siblings because we were always around. My aunts and my uncles and my cousins didn't live very far from me, all within like 15, 20 minutes. So it was just growing up like that. I mean, it really didn't need a sibling because, I mean, other than not living in the same house, I mean, I was always around them. So yeah, I mean, definitely always family oriented, always a big family around me.
That's awesome. So you grew up in California. And you're in Florida. So how long did you spend in the LA area?
So I lived in LA for about 19 and a half years.
Okay.
So
you definitely identify more with LA than you do with Florida.
Yeah, I've only been in Florida for about 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you are Southern California to the bone, 100%.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's where I grew up. That's where I learned everything. So I mean, definitely California is still, a big part of me.
So I guess most of the people that are going to be listening to this have this idea of Southern California. And I mean, you're going to probably, if you share this to, your friends and family back in LA, they probably will know the answer to this. But try to pander to the Florida audience here or the non-California audience here. And what is like a misconception of Southern California? Because I think a lot of us have this idea of LA, kind of being in this television scheme. Like if we wanted to go into TV, LA might be in our future. So what's something that people think about at LA that's just simply not true?
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. I think the first thing everybody thinks about when they think of especially Southern California, not so much Northern California, right. But Southern California, I mean, everybody thinks the LA area is just Hollywood, Hollywood, Hollywood. In reality, Hollywood is one neighborhood in Los Angeles County. That's it. I mean, Hollywood is not that big. If you are a LA native, the time you spend in Hollywood is roughly the equivalent of time a Floridian would spend in Kissimmee. I mean, it's tourist central. That's it. I can count on one hand how many times I've been to downtown Hollywood, like the Sunset Strip and all that. I mean, I can count on one hand how many times I've been there. Like where I grew up, the Valley and stuff, it's its own community. So it's a lot like, I mean, if you live in Oviedo or you live in, Winter Park, it's obviously not as nice as Winter Park. There's some nice areas, but I mean, it's suburban living. I mean, it's just, it's a lot of neighborhoods, a lot of multicultural neighborhoods.
It's the stories that aren't told.
Yeah, exactly.
That are kind of like dug underneath the surface.
Exactly.
Because you think LA and you think that's where they shoot all the movies, that's where they shoot all the TV shows, everything like that. But that's where all the celebrities live. But there's so much more than just that.
Yeah, and I think yeah, exactly. I mean, there's so many people that also think, like you mentioned the Valley to them, and you mentioned Calabasas is in the Valley, and they're like, oh, the Kardashians. It's like, yeah, but it's one really, really rich area, like right on the outskirts of the Valley. It's not, there's a lot of misconceptions, but yeah, definitely. I mean, not everybody's an aspiring actor in LA. There's a lot of people that are, working class, a lot of people that are doing many other jobs. I mean, it's a city of 16 million people. There's bound to be some
Wow,
variety there.
a lot of people.
Yeah.
Did you? So, I mean, do you grew up in one of the busy? Like, you grew up in an Olympic city. Like, I mean, the way I see it is, if you grew up in a city that's hosted a Summer Olympics, you can identify as someone that's from a very big city.
Hmm.
So, how do you think that shaped you growing up?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a little bit different now. I mean, Orlando's not such a small city. So I haven't had like a really weird time, adapting and stuff like that. But definitely with a big city, I mean, comes a lot of big city problems. You have traffic. Traffic is a nightmare. You need a car everywhere you go because I mean, it's a lot like Florida. There's not really a lot of public transportation. There's more of it in LA, but it's still not that great. But I think just being that big city, it's a lot of go, go, go. There's so many people. There's so many different people to know, so many different people to see. The chances of running into the same person are so small. I mean, you definitely have your core group of people but for the majority of the time, I mean, it's just a bunch of people in one huge city that you're passing by every day, and you're never going to see that person again. It's a lot different in that sense, and whereas I feel like here, I live in Oviedo.
Mhm.
I see a lot of the same people at the store. I see a lot of I start to familiarize people with the neighborhood. It's a lot more, it's a lot smaller of people. So it's definitely different in that sense with regards to a big city.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even like. I live very close to Oviedo. I can't do that. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
maybe I just don't because I don't have that necessarily. Like I mean, I grew up in Houston, which is also a very big city, and
yeah. Houston's
it's
huge.
bigger than Orlando and Oviedo. But I guess I was also part of like the reason why I chose to go to UCF is because it's in an area very similar to where I grew up. So
Yeah.
is the area that you grew up in the Valley very similar to the UCF area?
Um, I would say yeah. The part I lived in North Hills, which is just like a really, really small area. It's just like the valley's just made up of a bunch of different neighborhoods. The college I went to before UCF, Cal State Northridge, is right in the valley there. So it's similar in the sense that there's college life, but there's not so much college life as UCF. So I feel like the UCF area definitely caters to college students a lot more, whereas Cal State Northridge didn't really feel like that college life. Like
Mhm.
there's like 40,000 students there, but you just didn't. I never got that idea. There wasn't like student bars and stuff like that. There just isn't that same nightlife. So it's similar because there was a college nearby and I was close to the university like I am now. But no, it's definitely a lot less more of a college feel and more of just a regular suburban feel.
Hmm. So, Hitting the Field's obviously, I mean, Hitting the Crew is a very humanizing podcast, and it's really mostly about us as people. But Hitting the Field is a sports brand. So, how did sports weave into your life growing up?
I mean, I think they've always been a part
Mhm.
of my life in some way. When I was like 5 or 6, I was playing t-ball. I was on a sports team. I wasn't great, but I played. And then I played baseball. I played soccer for a little bit. I played tennis for like a couple months. I bowled. I did a lot of different sports. I swam. I was really into swimming at one point. So definitely, it was a big part of my life then. And then, I started obviously watching sports, and that's always really been a part of me too. Since I was like 8 or 9 years old, I've been really watching sports and watching a lot of games and building my knowledge of it. So it's always been a part of my life. And I look back on it now and I'm like, wow, I never thought sports was that, involved with me, but it really is because I never really played in high school. I didn't play in, I don't play in college. I didn't play even in middle school, but now I look back on it, it's like, well, I was still getting that sports experience.
Hmm. And would you like growing up? Did you play any sports growing up?
Yeah, I played like I said, I played t-ball,
Yeah,
baseball,
t-ball.
soccer. Yeah.
Like, was there one that stood out over the others?
Probably baseball, just because I played baseball pro. I played t-ball for a couple years, and then I played baseball for 2 or 3 years, and so that was probably the most significant, just because I played that the longest.
Do you have a Robert Husby hero moment from your youth sports career?
Um, if I had to remember one that wasn't on tape, I remember I was playing third base in baseball, and it was the last out of the inning, and there was like a man on first, a man on second, if I remember correctly. I was like 7 or 8, so my memory is all over the place here, but bases weren't loaded or anything like that. But someone hit a pop fly, and it was going pretty good, and I like had to run in the infield to go get it. Like nobody else was moving for it. So I just ran, I like slid under it. And I remember just like laying on my back, almost catching it. And I was like, that was the last out of the inning. I was like, man, I feel good after that. That was a great play. A little bit risky, but it worked. But that's really anything I can recall.
Did you feel on top of the world in that moment?
Oh yeah. You feel like, all eyes are on you. Yeah,
the
absolutely.
Euphoria of it all.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you're from LA. And what I love about our Hitting the Field group is that because we're in Orlando, there's so many different interest, like sports teams' interest in our area. Like obviously we have the people that come in from Tampa that are Bucks fans, the people that come from down south who are Miami fans, but there are people that support teams from all over. So we can get a multitude of opinions on things based on what we know. So often if there's LA, if there's like a Dodgers thing, I come to you. Or if there's like a Lakers thing. You're not a huge Lakers guy, right?
I would say I'm not nearly as into the Lakers as I am the Dodgers, but I've always been a Lakers fan.
But
so
you're a
I
Dolphins guy though, right?
Yeah, well now because I'm in Florida, now I watch the Dolphins more because I can actually watch them on TV. The Rams, it's hard to keep up with, but
yeah, that's fair. And I mean, look, but I mean, you grew up in LA where there wasn't really any NFL team until
yeah.
then. So, like, was there a team that you would follow, like that you adopted growing up?
Not really. I kind of watched the Patriots more than anything. Like, I'm a huge Tom Brady fan, so like I watch Tom Brady mostly. But yeah, outside of that, no. My cousin was a 49ers fan. Most of my family were 49ers fan. My grandma loved Joe Montana, but I still consider it sacrilegious to cheer for a San Francisco team. I will never ever cheer for the 49ers or cheer for the Giants. Never.
And so so you live in LA, right? And you mentioned how multicultural it is.
Yes.
Correct. So talk about how growing up in a multicultural environment was important to you growing up and how it shaped you through your life.
Oh, it was definitely a big part of it. I mean, I grew up my part of the valley was majority, a lot of Mexican culture. So most of my friends growing up were Mexican. Most of my friends now, even my best friends are still that I've known since, middle school, are Filipino. So, I mean, that's the schools I went to were majority Filipino, majority Hispanic. So, I mean, I've always been around that culture. I've always been around, a bunch of multicultural. It wasn't a white majority school. Most of the time it was, a lot of different things. So, even though I went to private school as a kid, it was still a lot of different cultures there. So I think I look back on that now and I'm like, that's great because now I have all those perspectives of other different cultures and my friends are from different backgrounds and they all have unique stories and they're from different places. And I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome that there's just so many different cultures in the valley alone. I mean, it really is a melting pot. Like everybody comes together.
Yeah. And I think that's so important. Because I grew up also very multicultural, and you see where we are as a country right now.
Yeah.
And how people can really suffer from not growing up in an environment that allows you to appreciate other races and cultures. I think it's just so important. And it really does shape you differently as a person, because I've realized over the past couple of days, some of these people, like for me and you, it was like understood, like you treat other cultures as you would any other, but
Exactly.
any other. But not everyone had that growing up, and I think I'm just now realizing, wow, like there really isn't, this education in a lot of America right now.
Definitely. I mean, yeah, it's a crazy perspective to see because it's not something I grew up with. Like you said, it's something so different.
Yeah, and that's why that's why I wanted to ask you these questions, is because I just feel it's such an important, especially in today's climate, but not just in today's climate, in tomorrow's climate, in every climate from here on out. That learning people from other cultures and from other walks of life is incredibly valuable and important. So it's valuable that we have someone, even if it's in the same country, because America is a melting pot of all these different cultures and backgrounds, and I think it's special that we have someone that has lived your culture, Robert, because nobody else has. So you have a perspective that not anyone else has. It's very unique.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I'm white, but like
Mm.
my own grandparents that I lived with my parents and I lived with my grandparents for a number of years. And, my grandparents, my grandfather spoke a little bit more, but both of my grandparents, immigrated from Italy to Canada. And then my mom was born in Canada and then they immigrated to LA. So, I mean, they, I'm a family of immigrants, so it's just, I grew up in a house that my grandparents really didn't speak that well of English. So I mean, I get the immigrant, the immigrant stuff, and I get all that, and I understand that perspective a lot more than I think people give credit for.
Yes. So I think that knowing that you have all of these different uh you have the Canadian culture and you have the Italian culture. Was there any way that you felt maybe like that you struggled with, trying to balance all of those together?
No, I never really did. I mean, other than like it never really seemed that like strange to me. I mean, like I grew up
It
in
was just
a
kind of what you knew.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just what I knew. I grew up, I was very familiar growing up with Italian being spoken in the household. I mean, I don't really speak it, but I understand a little bit of it, and it wasn't weird. I never really thought about it like, oh yeah, there's a bilingual household. Like I never really thought about that. It's just, like you said, what I knew.
It's like, yeah, you don't know anything else, so you're like, oh, this is how it is. All right.
Exactly.
But what is like one part of your non-American culture that like maybe like a memory that you grew up with that really stuck with you?
Um, I would say just like all the parties like we've had like as a family, like all like just because we have such a large family, like we spent Thanksgiving and Christmas all together. I think those are the memories that definitely speak out the most because there's always stuff happening that's funny. There's always memorable things to happen, and it's just spending quality time with the family. And I think because family is such a big part of my life still, I think that those are the memories that stick out to me the most is just the ones that you spend with your family in those holidays. And now it's a lot different. I mean, a lot of my family is still back in LA, so we don't have as much of an opportunity to do that anymore where we're all together. But those are the memories I definitely cling on to more now than I used to.
Yes. So I think that I think that that's awesome. Just having that large of a family and different people to hang out with and just share these moments with. That's something that I didn't have when I was a kid, but I kind of wish I did. So when I hear that people in my circle at Hitting the Field do that, it gives me some pride as well, I guess. So what's like one? Do you have like one particular memory that really sticks with, like one party that you remember that's like funny or just something that you remember? What's your most memorable like party when you were a kid with all your cousins and family?
Probably my 18th birthday, actually.
There you go. That's pretty recent.
We, yeah, oh yeah, it's definitely
Hmm.
recent.
Yeah.
It was like right before I moved here, like a year before. So we were just like, oh, we had a huge like outdoor party at my aunt's house, like out in the yard, and it was real nice and stuff like that. And then at some point, I don't know how, it always somehow something always starts. So we just like started throwing cake at each other and like hitting each other with cake, and it was like, oh my God, this is so funny. Like, and you're like
What
a
was the
mess.
flavor of the cake? Was it at least a good flavor?
Uh, what was it? I think it was chocolate. Like, yeah, I
Okay.
think it was chocolate.
That,
So yeah,
that
I'm good with chocolate.
yeah, yeah, totally. I'd hope that you'd be good with that because it's your birthday cake.
Oh yeah, I definitely picked it. I definitely made sure it was chocolate. Like chocolate's my favorite. So
All right. So I want to kind of find a place of transition. So I'm going to play a quick game with you. All
okay,
right. It's a lightning game. So you have to. I'm going to ask you a question. You got to give me the first thing that's off. First thing out of your mind. All right.
all right,
So are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Favorite food.
Pizza,
All right. Favorite restaurant.
In and Out.
In and Out.
Oh yeah.
So is it true? In and Out's a very Southern California thing. Is
Oh
it
yes.
true that it is the place to go?
In my opinion, I've never had Whataburger. You're a Texas guy. You know, I'm sure you're more familiar with Whataburger. I've never had it. I've had
We
Shake
just got
Shack.
an In and Out though. We did.
Oh, you guys did get an In-N-Out. Okay.
I've
Nice.
had an In
So
and Out before.
okay, yeah. So in my opinion, yes, In-N-Out is the quintessential fast food hamburger. It is so much and this leaves out Shake Shack because Shake Shack isn't really fast food. At least it isn't here. I know there's
I
Shake Shacks
I
around.
wouldn't consider Shake Shack fast food. You got to sit down restaurant.
Yeah, that's
In
what
and
I
Out's
would consider.
drive through. You're in, you're out.
Yeah,
That's it. Shake Shack,
exactly.
you got to sit down or a shake.
There's no drive-through, exactly.
No.
So for fast food, for drive-through, In-N-Out doesn't get any better. I mean, when you compare McDonald's and Burger King and Wendy's, like they have redeeming qualities about them, but In-N-Out is so much more fresh and just the taste. I mean, it's hard to describe to people that have never had it before. But it's the quintessential hamburger, and it's very California. It's very much we take a lot of pride in it because it's a local chain that's now reaching to other parts of the West, but it's definitely a California thing, and I think a lot of people in LA defend it to the death, and they'll never admit that it sucks. But I don't think it sucks. I think it's great, and I love it, and I miss it. Like I haven't had it in like 3 years. I'm going back home in December, I think, and I'm gonna feast when I go out back out there.
Because the thing is, what I hear is, I either hear In and Out's the greatest thing on earth, like you have described it, but then I also hear that it's overrated.
Oh yeah,
So
you
what do you have
always
to
hear
say to
that.
what do you have to say the In and Out is overrated crowd?
I think they're just saying it just to say it. I mean, they'll say, "Oh, it's overrated. Like Wendy's is way better." It's like, okay, no. Or they'll usually it's not a local. Usually it's not like a countrywide chain. Usually they'll say like, "Oh, Whataburger's way better," or "Oh, Shake Shack's way better," or they'll say some other Five Guys or something like that. But no, for me, In and Out is just yeah. You can't admit that it's not unless you had like it burnt. I've never had a bad In and Out burger. Like it's always been cooked right. It's always tasted good. You wait for it, but it's worth the wait, and no other fast food restaurant can say that. I don't think.
Fair enough. All right, favorite color.
Purple.
All right, why purple?
I don't know. I've always liked purple. It's not quite blue and it's not quite red. It's both. So I kind
True.
of like the mix
Best
of
of both
that.
worlds.
Exactly.
You're like if you got like, you got to choose red or blue? No, I want purple.
Yeah, mix them together.
Favorite number.
Favorite number? 7.
Why 7?
Cristiano Ronaldo.
There you go. Is Ronaldo your favorite athlete? Because that was gonna be my next question.
Probably, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so talk
definitely.
talk about Ronaldo and how he's inspired you in a sense.
Oh, I mean, he's like when we had the debate with Manuel, in my opinion, he's the greatest soccer player I've ever seen play. I mean, it's just he was such a big part of Real Madrid's success. I think because they were such a big part of my childhood and a part of me now. He was like one of the first really mega athletes I remember watching live, and I look back on it now. It's like, man, it went by so fast, even though it was like 6, 7 years of watching him play. But yeah, really, even before watching Tom Brady, I watched almost every one of Ronaldo's matches. Now, so he was just such a big part of me watching sports. I think that's why I've always sort of clinged to him more than a lot of other mega athletes like LeBron or Brady or any of these guys.
Yeah. So do you have like a specific Ronaldo moment in your lifetime that you're like, wow, like that's my guy, CR7 till I die?
It was actually probably his last season at Real Madrid. They were playing the Champions League. I want to say it was a semifinal. It was 2000 and I want to say it's 2017 or 2000. It was the year he left, so I think that's 2018. And they were playing against Juventus, and it was the first leg, and they're in Turin where he plays now. He plays for Juventus now, and Danny Carvajal, who's their right back, moves up into the box. Ronaldo had already scored in the match, and this is like in the second half, if I remember correctly. I don't remember the exact time. And Carvajal goes into the box, sends in a cross, puts it perfectly up in the air. Ronaldo gets off the ground like 5 or 6 feet and just kicks this beautiful overhead kick. Like doesn't look at the goal, a total bicycle kick. Goes into the top of the net, and they're up 2-0. And I'm like, that's the only time I've ever stood up off like my couch during a match where I've been like, oh my God, like I can't believe that just happened. That was legitimately one of the best goals I've ever seen scored live, and I was freaking out just because it was crazy. Like, it was beautiful. So even though it's a lot more recent, that's definitely the quintessential moment for me, and it's bittersweet because it was his last season. But
so you watch a lot of European soccer.
yes,
I think it's safe to say.
Oh yeah.
What was your first introduction to the European soccer world?
Watching as a kid, I remember watching some Champions League matches, and I believe it was Zidane's last year at Real Madrid. So I think that's 2006. They were just such a fun team to watch. That time they were starting to get a little bit older. Like I said, that was Zidane's last year. Beckham was starting to leave soon, and it was just they weren't as prominent as they had been. And the next few years were pretty tough to watch them because they just were a shell of themselves, considering how many good players they had before that. But no, I just remember watching it and being like, wow, like Zidane is so good. Like, I'm watching these guys and watching all these players, and I'm like, wow, I knew nothing about soccer before that. And I had heard names like Messi and Ronaldo and stuff like that, but I had never really watched. And then, you're watching this team, and obviously that was before Ronaldo, but had gone to Real Madrid. But I mean, I just remember watching them in the Champions League and being like, wow, this sport's actually really good. Like, I don't know why people say this is boring. Like, this is actually a really fun sport.
So you kind of taught yourself like how to get into it. You didn't really have your dad or your mom kind of bring you into it.
No, yeah, my parents aren't really big sports fans. My dad kind of tries to be, but he's never been like a huge sports guy. I mean, I grew up, going to games with him and stuff like that, but he was never like super into it.
What's your favorite game that you've been to with your dad?
Well, it would be a Dodgers game, so it would be it would actually be the probably the Clayton Kershaw Washington Nationals game. Clayton Kershaw, that was the first time I'd seen Clayton Kershaw pitch live. I forget what year it was, but they played the Nationals, and I wanted to see Bryce Harper too, just because I think that was the year after Bryce Harper won MVP. So there was just a lot of hype around him, and Harper was like 0 for 4 in that game, 0 for 3, 0 for 4. Kershaw threw a 2-hitter, and it was like over. It was the fastest Dodgers game I've ever been to. But yeah, that one sticks out to me a lot more just because I got to watch my favorite pitcher pitch, and it was over so fast. Like, it was like, wow, he just dominated the Nationals.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel like that's how baseball games go. If you're there and you're in the environment, it goes by so quickly.
Yeah,
but
and
from home, like it's like
Yeah, my first Dodgers-Giants game went like 14 innings, and the Dodgers ended up losing, and we were there for like almost 4 hours, and I was like, oh my God, this does not stop. It wasn't like a playoff game or anything. It was just, it was just a regular season game, but because of the rivalry, it was like, oh my God, this is just so exhausting.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go back into like this Dodgers crevice that we're in right now. So your favorite Dodger is Clayton Kershaw, right?
Actually, growing up before Kershaw, my favorite Dodger growing up was Shawn Green.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Shawn Green, Stan. We don't see too many of those. So why Shawn Green? I mean, not to be confused with HTF Shawn Green.
No, not yet. Not Sean. This is Sean spelled SHAWN and an E at the end of Green.
Well, there are so many spellings to Sean, man. Like, can't y'all just agree on one and move on? But anyway, so let's talk about LA Dodger Shawn Green.
Yes.
But shout out HTF Shawn Green. You're cool too. But Dodger Shawn Green. Why was he your favorite player?
Two reasons. So one reason was because I actually got to see him live as a kid. So I went to Dodger Stadium one time, and they do all those fan giveaways at baseball games. So they were giving away a Shawn Green baseball, a jersey, like a it was a replica of like a Dodgers jersey. So it was basically like a white shirt with the red number and then green on the back. So I was like, oh my God, now Shawn Green's my favorite Dodger. I have his jersey or I have his shirt. And like that was like my pajama t-shirt. Like I went to bed with it every night.
Yeah.
And but then also like for an actual other reason, I mean, the 4 home run game he had, I want to say it was against the Diamondbacks. I think they were in Arizona. I want to say it was the Diamondbacks. I could be wrong, so long ago, but he hit 4 home runs in that game, and it was like, wow, this guy's actually like got some underrated power. Like, he's really good. Like, he never got credit for being that good, but he was always a solid player. He just never was, he was never, Adrian Gonzalez or Clayton Kershaw. And obviously he was before those guys, a lot of those guys, but he never got that credit for being like a really good Dodger player. Like I always thought he was really good and pretty underrated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it says against the Mill. So he hit a major league record tying 4 home runs and record tying 5 extra base hits against the Milwaukee Brewers
That
and
was
had
Milwaukee.
19 total bases, breaking Joe Adcock's 1954 major league record by 1. So it was in 2002 when he did this. So he broke a near 50-year record.
Yeah, so yeah, I was like 5 at that point. I remember it vaguely. I remember I've seen so much highlights since then, but I remember watching that.
I mean, it's hard to hate. I mean, the thing is, the Dodgers have such a rich history, especially in the last 10 years. Like, I think people forget that, like, the Dodgers have been to the playoffs every year for the last, like, 10 years.
Yeah, they just can't get it done in the playoffs, and
Yeah.
that's the problem.
And maybe that's part of the reason why they aren't in that same, like, realm as other dynasties. But, I mean, the Dodgers in the early 2000s, Sean Green was the man.
Oh yeah, he was a great player.
It makes sense. That's how they bring you in. They pick a player. You got it. That's your guy, and you move forward.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. That's how they kind of creep in on you. But so man, where was I going next? Favorite live sports game that you've been to. Is it the same one that we just mentioned, or is there something else?
No, probably not the Kershaw game. Favorite live sports game. I'm actually gonna say it was pretty recent. So I would say like any of the Kings. Like I've been to plenty of Kings games where they won in overtime and stuff like that, and that's always a lot of fun. Hockey's really exciting. But I would actually say the Panama USA game that was here at Orlando City Stadium. I think it was the year that the U.S.
I was at that game.
Were you really?
Yes, I was working at that game.
I feel like so many people were at that game.
That's crazy. It was the year. It was a World Cup qualifier, and they didn't make it to. It was the last win they had in the World Cup qualifying stage.
Yep, it was the game right before they lost like a month later to Trinidad and Tobago.
Yes.
Yep.
I was at that game. I remember that.
Yeah, it was so much fun. Like I remember, I went with my dad, and it was just like my cousins went, but they were sitting in a different section, so it was like. That's like the loudest I've ever heard a soccer crowd. I mean, obviously, if I'd gone to Europe, it probably would top it there. But for an American soccer crowd, it was like, wow. They're like, I was shocked. I was like, wow, they're like, who says the U.S. doesn't care about soccer? Like it's here to stay. I was so excited. First time I'm seeing Christian Pulisic live and all that, and like
that's
team.
What I was excited for.
Oh yeah, definitely. And the game, they win that game. I think they won it like 2 or 3-0, and I was like, oh my God, they're going to make the World Cup. They're going to make, it shouldn't be hard to beat Trinidad. And then like 2-3 weeks later, they lose to Trinidad. And then Taylor Twellman goes on his rant about what's wrong with U.S. soccer. And they're just a massive joke, and they miss the World Cup. And it's like, wow, that deflated fast.
Yeah, that was a very low point.
Oh yeah, but great game though.
The U.S. men's national team.
Yeah.
But that's so crazy because I was there. So what happened was I was a volunteer. I was doing market research for USA Soccer. And so I was like asking people throughout the stadium, like some questions before kickoff. And then after the game kicked off, we got to sit in like the very back row behind one of the goals.
Okay.
And the thing about Orlando City Stadium, it's an incredible stadium because there is no bad seat.
No, there really isn't.
No. And so I was totally okay with it. But enough about me, more about you. This is the Robert Husby episode of the podcast. When I'll talk about this on my episode whenever that comes out. But let's bring this back to you. So talk about high school. Born in high school. So how was high school like for you?
I loved high school. A lot of people like hate high school, and they're like, man, that's I would never do high school again. I was like, I would do high school over and over again. Like I made so many friends in high school that I still talk to today. And a lot of my friends, I think it helped that a lot of my friends from middle school and elementary school ended up going to the same high school I did. So I think that helped a lot, but no, definitely. I mean, There's a lot of friends I made in high school. I loved it. I liked all my teachers, not all of them, but most of them. I still consider like some of my favorite teachers I've ever had. So, just I mean, they were always like, I just always really liked high school, and I never hated going. I actually really liked going, and I mean, I've always been a person that really likes going to school for some reason. Like, I just like the experience. But no, yeah, for me, high school was great. I mean, I went to a private Catholic high school, but it wasn't really as strict as a lot of other people talk about, private schools like that. So, I mean, it was always a really fun time for me.
Did not the stereotype did not fit the narrative?
Not really. I mean, other than the uniforms, and I mean, they were strict on certain stuff, but I mean, it wasn't as strict as some other places can be.
Well, that's good. I mean, it's good that you've had a positive experience. Was it a
Yeah.
large private? Like, how big was your class senior year?
Oh my God, I couldn't even. I want to say like 300 kids, 200 kids.
I mean, that's still pretty good.
Yeah, it wasn't huge.
Like,
Definitely was not
you couldn't
huge.
name everybody.
Yeah, oh, I could name most of the people from
Most,
my
but not all
graduating
the people.
class. Not all of them. There'd
Okay.
be people I would forget, like I didn't even meet, or
Mm-hmm.
stuff like
So
that.
it wasn't that small. But
No,
decent
it wasn't that
size.
small.
That's I think what most schools should be like. I feel like schools that are too small, you're kind of limiting yourself. But then schools that are too big, it's like you feel so small in the grand scheme of things. They're kind of just bringing you in and pushing you out, kind of thing. But
Yeah.
a school at the size of you, that works.
Yeah, and I know like some of the guys in my class like ended up going to play football at like UCLA, USC. So
Wow.
yeah, some of them.
So do you have like people that that have gone to play pretty high up? So I mean D1, but like did they do anything after that or do really well in D1?
Not anybody that sticks out particular. There was one guy that I knew. I didn't know him too well, but he was in a couple of my classes that ended up going to USC, and he was like, I want to say like a backup running back or something like that. So he played. I mean, he was on the
Great.
field, a few times for USC. So I mean, I don't think he made the NFL, but he might still be
USC
there.
running backs have made the Heisman. So
Yeah, exactly.
do you know of any? This is a weird question that I was talking about it with Ross, and we just recorded Ross's podcast. Go check that out if you haven't done so already, or maybe I guess I have to publish Ross's first, but I just totally just set myself up. But anyway, do you know any famous people, like famous relatives?
Famous relatives.
Famous relatives or famous people that you know?
I don't know anybody. I do I know anybody famous? I want to say no. I don't think I know anybody famous. Not. I've met like famous people, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know anybody famous personally.
Here we are again, breaking the LA stereotype.
Exactly. We do not know every famous person there is.
But okay, so now is getting the part where we're kind of this is kind of like the big question here. So after high school, you go to Cal State Northridge, and this is the part that I really don't know yet, and I've wanted to ask you for a long time, but never found the right chance until this very moment. So how did Robert Husby spent 19 years in California end up in Oviedo, Florida?
Okay, so it's actually not that complicated of a story.
Oh,
So LA is one stereotype that is not that is absolutely true about LA, that is not fake, is that LA is very, 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 very expensive.
fair, yes.
It sucks how expensive it is. Gas is about 4.50 a gallon, whereas
Jesus.
here it's down to like 1.90 right now. So
Yeah.
um,
Yep.
it's definitely different there, but also the housing costs. I mean, so I lived in an apartment with my parents, not even like really that close to my university, maybe like 20 minutes from it in the far end of the valley. And it was $2,500 a month for rent
Wow.
for not for like a 1.5 bedroom.
Wow. That's a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah, and it's nowhere near. We have a townhouse now, and it's not even that much a
Mhm.
month. So, um, it's very, very expensive. So my parents, had always kind of had it in their mind that they wanted to move to Florida. I have family out here. My three
Oh,
cousins that live out here all went to UCF, all graduated from
fellow
UCF.
cousins.
Yeah,
Go
they're all
go nice for John.
exactly. They're all alumni. So it was getting so expensive out in LA that my parents are like, okay, well, we can stay here and, see what happens. And, it's not that great it's not that great paying all that money. So they're like, let's pull the trigger. Let's move to Florida. So we moved to Florida. My cousin was getting married out here. So we had to be in Florida anyways.
Mhm.
And then I just didn't leave. I stayed with my aunt and my uncle out here. And then my parents made the move over here. They drove. And then, we just moved out here to Oviedo. So my aunt and uncle live in Oviedo. Like I said, my cousins all went to UCF, so UCF is very much in the family. So it's not that strange. I mean, I definitely probably would not have moved to Florida if I didn't know anybody here. Like we probably wouldn't have moved out here. I mean, that's the big reason we did, was because we knew people out here. If we didn't have family or anything out here, I don't know what we would have done. I don't know if we would have moved to a different state, or if we would have just moved to a different part of LA, maybe a not so safe area of LA, or
Yeah,
somewhere not as, even the area we were living at, it wasn't worth 2,500. It wasn't that nice, but
yeah,
yeah, definitely that's why we moved. It was mainly financial reasons, and just because, we actually knew people out here already.
that's fair. So, how did you feel when you realized you were leaving LA?
Um, I hated it at first. I was
Mhm.
like, why am I moving to Florida? Florida is, I mean, everybody talks so much crap on Florida. It's, why am I moving here? Like, this is going to be so bad. I'm leaving all my friends. I don't know anybody. Why am I doing, other than my cousins, like, why am I doing this? Like, this sucks. But then I kind of got excited. Like, I really liked UCF. I really liked having a much bigger school that was way more student life and stuff like that. Maybe it was also because I was older now and I was nearing the age where, you start to go out and stuff like that. And I actually was able to drive out here because insurance was so expensive out in LA
Mhm.
compared to here. So I was actually able to drive a lot more.
That
Um, yeah. So, I mean, I'm more keen on it now. And I'm actually like, see, a lot of people are wrong about Florida. Like it's got some real positives about it. And I really like living out here. So, I actually don't mind it too much, and I don't get as homesick as I was when I first moved out here.
so like what like because as someone that is not from Florida either, like I know about there being like a transition, and then and you learn a lot about yourself during that when you are taken out of your environment. It really kind of exposes you because you can't hide behind it anymore. You kind of
Yeah,
got thrown into the ocean a little bit. 3,000. I don't even know how many miles away. 3,000 sounds like a lot.
that's about
How
right, I
big
think.
is it?
Oh yeah, that's definitely about right, I
How
think.
is it? I want to see how many miles it is. Just see how. It's 2,700. You know what? Not
Okay,
bad.
so it's
Not bad.
underneath.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So 2,000 plus miles away from where you grew up. Like,
hmm
so what was the like? What did you learn about yourself most when you moved over?
That it's not so hard to adapt. Like you
Hmm.
actually, it's pretty natural, the adaptation. Like it's not so different from LA that it's like a completely foreign environment. Like there's different seasons and stuff like that.
Hmm.
LA gets relatively cold in the winter. It gets colder here in the winter than it does in LA. The
Yeah.
only thing really different is hurricane season and the humidity. I mean, that's really the big difference. But other than that, I mean, it's Orlando's a regular, pretty big city. I mean, it's not huge like LA, but and I feel like I've integrated a lot more than I thought I would. Like I never thought I would be like so comfortable with a move and stuff like that. But now I'm just like it's normal now. Like now I go to UCF, that's normal. Everybody knows I-4 sucks. Everybody, I know all the local spots now, and I'm like I'm more of a local now. So I've definitely been amazed at how well I've integrated into a completely different state.
Yeah. And so, did you? How was your first time at UCF? So I know you came to UCF because you knew people, but when you transferred to UCF for the first time, um, how like were you originally a journalism major going into UCF?
Yeah, I was always a journalism major.
Okay.
I've been wanting to get into journalism since high school. So,
So yeah, talk about that actually first. So how what made you get into journalism in the first place?
I think it's really sports. Like
Mhm.
just getting like right into my freshman year of high school, I was starting to think, they start telling you, okay, obviously it's not time to get worried about it and stuff like that, but it's time to, start thinking about what you want to do with your life. And I had never really thought about it. I was like, do I want to be like a teacher? And then I was like, nah, because I was always really good at math and English and stuff like that. So what could I be, a professor or something like that? But then I was really into sports, and I was like, I really like following sports accounts on social media. I really like, watching sports shows and stuff like that. I was like, I would like to do that. I would like to get into sports. I would really, enjoy that experience. And, I have family members that are in the sports industry and stuff like that. And I was like, maybe I could get into journalism like that, sports journalism specifically. So that's what I went into going into college. When I went to Cal State Northridge was like, okay, I'm going to do sport. They didn't have a specific sports journalism track, but that's what I want to do. I want to, get into sports journalism, not necessarily host a show like First Take or something like that, but either do reporting or do TV reporting, something like that where, I can go and interview players or, cover all that stuff. So I think it's always really been my kind of dream to do that. And that's what I'm pursuing.
Yeah. So what was your first day at UCF like? And did you choose UCF strictly for, the fact that, it's right where you are? Like, did you ever think about going to any other university in Florida other than UCF?
Yeah, I mean, it was always UCF because my parents were going to move locally, and they were like, okay, like, you can, live here and stuff like that and go to school and it'll be easy. And like I said, just because I had family that was alumni and stuff like that, it was always pretty much going to be UCF. I didn't apply anywhere else in Florida. I probably could have applied to UF. I didn't, but it was just, too far up north. I didn't want to pay I was in a dorm at CSUN and stuff like that. So I was like, I don't want to really do the dorm thing again. Like it wasn't me. So it was always UCF.
So describe your first day at UCF, like what that was like.
A different experience. Like I knew nothing about the campus. I didn't have a car right then because my parents were moving it over. So I wasn't able to drive. So I just, kind of got dropped off, and it was like being dropped off at like the first day of like a new school. It was like, all right, go out there and have fun. Like I was scrambling around looking for the buildings, like looking for the classes. I don't know the buildings. I'm like looking. I had like a printout map like from UCF's website of campus, just like looking around, like, okay, I got to go to this building, and then I got to find this floor and this room. I'm like, oh my God, I was getting stressed out. I was like scrambling looking for it. I didn't want to run late. I was like a half hour early, and I still got there like right on time. And I'm like, oh my God, like this campus is massive. Like I have no idea where I'm going. But you slowly start to learn. And now, I could be blindfolded and find most of my way around campus.
Mm-hmm.
There's still places I don't know, but I've been in most of the buildings now.
Because what was your first semester on campus?
Fall semester of no, not fall. Spring semester of 2017, I want to say.
Oh, so you've been here.
Yeah. This will be my I don't even know, like sixth semester here.
All right.
Yeah,
All right.
I've been a while at UCF now.
Excellent. So why so how did you get to, I know the answer to this question, obviously, but how did you get to hitting the field?
Yeah, so actually, obviously, you know the answer because you were the one that announced it to our class.
That's why
yeah,
I did, yes.
Yeah, but it goes before that too, and it was my own procrastination. My second semester, it was fall semester, I think, of my first year here. I was in Brunson's. Excuse the phone. I don't know if you can hear that, but Brunson's. I was in Brunson's 2100 class for journalism.
Yes.
And he happened to mention hitting the field in class, and he was like, oh, and I asked him about after class. I was like, Brunson, how do you get involved with that hitting the field show? Like, I want to do like that because there's no like sports reporting offered until this semester. So I was like, okay, how do I get involved? And he's like, oh yeah, reach out to Dylan Yance. And I had no idea who Yance was at the time. I was like, who? I was like, I have no idea. I thought that was a student. I didn't know Yance was like the head of like of like RTV and stuff like that. I had no idea. So I was like, I never really followed up on it. And then when you mentioned it in class, when we were in our mobile journalism class this semester, mentioned it, I was like, okay, now is the opportunity. I have to strike. I have to be like, okay, this is the only way I might get some sports experience here at UCF. So I gotta get involved. And yeah, the rest is history. I mean, that again, you can take full credit for that.
What year were you in Brunson's principles course?
I want to say it would have been 2017, I think. So yeah, it would have been 2017. So fall of 2017.
That was my class.
Really? Was that? I could have been
in that class together.
Oh my God, and I had
Well,
no idea.
until 3 years later.
Yeah. That's
There you
crazy
go.
if that's true.
Yeah, that was the class that I was in because I remember that's when I joined hitting the field, and I knew about hitting the field the previous semester from a friend at like the very end of like spring 17. So when I came back for the fall, I was like, okay, I'm definitely going to be in hitting the field, and I was like, I sat with all the hitting the field people in the back, like we were like the cool kids, we thought. But that class actually has a decent amount of like hitting the field alumni. So like Nick Santiago is in that class, Armand was in that class. Man, I'm trying to remember who else. Alicia Hatcher was in that class. Shout out to Alicia. She's a meteorologist and reporter up in West Virginia right now. But yeah, a lot of hitting the field people were in that class. A lot of people that I know were in that class, and now you're added to that list. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure that was that's crazy. Like,
Mhm.
that's like a mind blow. That's like, whoa,
Yeah.
like really?
Oh yeah. So the last two questions that I want to ask before we sign off here. So, first, 2030, where do you see Robert Husby?
2030.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in those years, I hope I'm at like maybe not necessarily. I mean, who even knows what the future of like television is and stuff like that, and the future of TV shows like that. But I mean, I would love to be like on ESPN doing either on-air talent or sports reporting for some organization, just some major publication. I mean, I think that's the dream for a lot of people that get into sports. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I'm not so much into like the hot take stuff and saying controversial stuff. I know obviously they do that for a lot of the ratings. Like I like just the discussion of it and having real honest discussions about sports and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I would love to be on a major network like Fox or ESPN. I'd love to see myself there. Obviously you don't get started there, but that's something I would absolutely love to work towards. And I think that's the ultimate goal for me.
Mm-hmm. And the last question, so hitting the field is a family, and the way I see it is people that are part of our families, whether they are given family at birth or the family that we choose, are super important to us as people. We are a representation of our family. So I want you to name one person from your given family and one person from your chosen family that you feel has really impacted your life up until where you are today.
Yeah, so from my given family, I mean, I think it's probably. Oh man, I gotta have to pick between my parents. Oh man, it's like the ultimate choice. Probably my dad, just because I've really been, you know, around my dad a lot. Like we went to sports games and stuff like that, like I said, as a kid, and we spent a lot of time going to places. And like he was always the one willing to, drive me around, willing to take me places, willing to, do all that stuff. So I've always been not a lot closer to. I mean, not really a lot closer to my dad than my mom, but just on a different level where we
Mm-hmm.
got to spend quality time together and stuff like that. Like when I was in Boy Scouts as a kid, my dad was with me in Boy Scouts. My dad was my manager in baseball. So, yeah, I mean, definitely I would say my dad for sure. I mean, he's just always been that influence on me on who I am as a person because he's always been giving and I try to be like that. He's always been a lot more timid than like my family. Like I'm not a confrontational person. I'm very much reserved. I can be if I need to be like my mom is and the Italian side of my family is, but he's always been a lot more timid and I'm a lot more reserved like that too for the most part. So he's definitely the one that has more of an effect on my personality like that. Even though I can get pretty high strung too. So they definitely both influence my personality. But yeah, I would say probably my dad is the most influential for me.
Yeah, and so now your chosen family, the people that
So
aren't necessarily your blood, the family you're given at birth, but the friends that you call family.
yeah, I would say probably my best friend. My best friend's name is Daniel.
Shout out Daniel.
Shout out Daniel. I met him. I want to say my fifth or sixth year. No, my fifth year of middle school. So fifth grade.
Mm-hmm.
So he was came over from the Philippines, but he had been living in the U.S. and L.A. since like he was 2 or 3. But he transferred to our school, and I met him, and we just became like the best of friends. And we went to the same high school together. We went to the same college. We were out at CSUN together. So I mean, I've always been around him. Like he's always been my best friend. So I would say, he was probably the biggest influence on me, just because we were always around each other. He was always, just I would give him rides home and stuff like that. And, we just spent so much time together, like outside of school, at school, that, you can't help but have an effect on each other. And, I think that's why we've stayed friends. We have similar personalities. But, also it's just spending that time together and also getting to know each other. And then, I mean, it shows how strong a friendship can be when you've known the person, in middle school, in high school, and the beginning stages of college. That's like 3 stages of life right there. So again, how can you not, have an effect on each other like that?
Yeah, that's really special, and it's awesome to hear stories like that. Because though, like, we are, at least I can speak for it, and I think that I would be nowhere without the people in my life, and I think I hope to be a representation of the people in my life. Because I know that Hitting the Field is a big part of that. That's what we are at Hitting the Field. We are chosen family, and you are part of that, Robert. So, and I'm glad that for me, I feel like every time someone comes on the show, I feel a sense of I'm closer to them than I was before we were an hour ago. So that's why I do these in a selfish manner. I do these obviously, for the podcasting experience and, just for the content purposes and getting Hitting the Field out there. But on a selfish, level, this is why I like to do it. So thank you so much, Robert. I wish you nothing but the best. I know we didn't know each other very long, even though we probably should have, considering we were in the same class 3 months
Exactly.
ago. But I think that you're a real good guy. You're fighting the good fight. And I can't wait to see what's in store for you.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. And that's all for today's episode of Hitting the Crew. Thank you, Robert, for coming on to the show today. We
Thank
also
you.
did record Ross Bernstein's episode. Go check that out as well. We also talked about the return of the NBA on the most latest episode of the Hitting the Field podcast. So go check that out. We will continue these podcasts throughout the month of June and July as we go into August. With the fall coming back up, looking like we will be on campus for the fall, at least those that have yet to graduate. So that will be Robert Husby and crew. But for the people like me, it will be time to pass the show along. But again, thank you so much, Robert, and thank you to all the people that put this together. And we'll catch you on the flip side.